Many times people ask me this question that what is the message I want to give to young people? And every time I've repeated the same thing. And I'm going to repeat that today also. I said that today's generation of young people are very fortunate in the sense that most of them are not worried about what their life is going to be without a job. They have options to make choices. And I always tell them to follow their passion. When you follow your passion, you may have success, you may have failure. So a student should be able to take decisions based on their passion without worrying about what others are advising them to do. And this is going to be very interesting for all the students to follow. And I'm sure that this week's Student Times will be appreciated by one and all. Thank you.
Hello, Namaste. I am Amanda Vas, a student of biotechnology from DYPIU International University, Akurdi, Pune. And today we have on board a renowned personality, Sir Anil P. Agarwal. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
We are so glad to have you on board. So about Sir, he is the founder of Edify Online, an engineering graduate from the University of California, Berkeley, and an MBA graduate from the University of Golden Gate, San Francisco. Mr. Agarwal has over 30 years of experience in business strategic planning and implementation, managing design and manufacturing operations, marketing and global supply chain, and in reconstructing inefficient operations. So starting off with, sir, tell us something about your vision, mission, and action of Edify Online.
So Edify Online was a vision started back in 2015, before COVID. We didn't even know there was anything like COVID that will ever happen. And the idea was that knowledge should not be restrained by any geographical boundaries. And my first conversation was with MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in California, in the United States. And the vision was that why do we have to limit students learning from only local professors? They can be anywhere from in the world. The right teacher could live in a small village, could be in a big city, could be anywhere. It could be anywhere regionally or geographically. It took us almost 4 years to COVID before people realized that it is time perhaps to go beyond those boundaries. So our vision is to get all this knowledge collected anywhere for anyone to take. There is no limitation. And it works very well for India. For example, in India, there are a lot of universities in small rural areas where they don't either have the faculty, don't have the budget. Mm-hmm. What we're saying is you don't have to have a physical faculty on your campus when you can actually access them from anywhere in the world. It can be within India, but can be from the United States, UK. For example, we have one of the customer where we're doing 100 courses for their students every semester. And we have professors coming from United States to Canada, to UK, to Australia, to Turkey, to a different part of the world. And I think our vision is that Edify Online should enable that process around the world, including India. And India is definitely the biggest component. India is the youngest nation in the world. So if there is any impact of that, India is certainly the main major factor in that.
Mm-hmm. I see. As you can see, Sir is trying to bridge the gap between education and students. So when you started off with the customer base, did you have India in mind or was it worldwide? What was your idea when you started the a little project of Edify Online?
So that's a very good question. No, India was not in my mind.
All right.
Even though I have traveled to India very often, I used to have an office in Mumbai a long time ago when I was running a steel mill in the United States. We started for United States, as a matter of fact. There were a lot of people in United States where they had budgetary issues. They did not want to hire the full-time faculty. They were looking for adjunct. In the United States, we call people who are not fully employed on any campus, we call them adjunct. And universities in the United States were facing problem finding qualified adjunct people within the locality they were at.
I see.
So I said, why do you have to limit yourself to the area that you are in? Why don't you expand that to find people from different states?
Right.
That was really the purpose, that we can actually go anywhere. And obviously, a lot of the learning can be done online these days. In the United States, people could also travel to that campus who was needed.
Right. Right.
But more and more people are finding now that it's actually better to just do online teaching.
I see. I see. Well, you have been an engineering graduate, and you have done your MBA as well, and now you're an entrepreneur. So what is the one project that you have worked for and you're so passionate about it? Whether it is Edify Online, I mean, that is something that you are consistently pursuing, but what is something that you have done in your entire life that, something that brings a smile to your face?
So that's an excellent question, but it's very fully loaded.
Okay.
I have failed everywhere.
I see.
So I have been bankrupt 3 times in my life.
All right.
So what happens in learning, there are 2 ways to learn. One is that you learn and time is aligned with you and luck comes with you and you're successful.
True.
Generally, people around the world think that if you're successful without trouble, you have learned a lot. But in reality, and if you have not failed, you have not learned, right? So problem with me was that I failed. Perhaps it was my nature of being stubborn. I did something else again.
Right.
I did very well, then failed. Then we did something else, and then failed again. So I guess the message I have is you really never fail because your learning continues, right?
Right.
You learn more when you have failed.
Right.
Once you fail, my experience is that if you go back and say, well, I failed, I must be really bad, or a lot of things didn't go right, and if you go as a victim blaming others, then you have actually failed. Another way of mind is that when you fail, you start to analyze, what is it I should have done differently?
Right.
Right? And had I done it differently, would I have been okay? Or how would I do something else differently? Now, it took me 3 times, by the way. But failing should not be an option.
Right.
Right? But just because you failed, you will fail if you don't use the option of continue to go. Right? So I don't know if I answered your question, but I just want to make sure. And that's the message for me to a lot of the people I meet around the world and students, that you don't fail, just keep trying. India was not forgiving 40 years ago. I used to know that parents would not want you to fail, right? So there was a different kind of oppression on Indian students, that you had to comply to the wishes of your parents, that I must succeed. And I thought that was very stupid. Because if student doesn't succeed, we've never looked at why they didn't succeed. Maybe it wasn't something they were willing to do.
Right.
And but I think India has changed since then, right?
Yes.
It seems like students are more free. They have more freedom to choose. But in defense of those people, those parents who forced their students to succeed, economy was not very good in India, right? So parents knew certain things you did, if you succeeded, you will do well. So more of a security element.
Yes.
So I'll stop at that.
All right. As we can hear, Sir has given us very sound advice that failure is just a stepping step towards success, and it's important to never give up. So my next question to you, Sir, is that artificial intelligence is continuously evolving in our country and around the world. So how do you think artificial intelligence can change the face of education in the future?
Well, artificial intelligence is an enabler. Right? Humans, you're still teaching humans. Even in artificial intelligence, you have to continuously evolve. It's a good thing. If we were to go back to, let me think for a second. So one of the meetings I had with MIT professor was that we are the world's known high-ranking #1 university in the world.
Right.
So my response to them was, that is true. But it's based on 97% rejection process, meaning you reject 97% of the population to gain your strength of being number one in the world, because 3% of the population you select are the strongest candidates. Dow is good for ranking, but this is not what the world would really need, right? So automation technology would enable the process for those 97% of the population that never had a chance.
Right.
Right? So going back to the MIT sample, if 3% of the population is strong, they would be successful no matter where they went in the world. Mm-hmm. They don't have to go to MIT. Mm-hmm. They can go anywhere in the world. So the education should be for those 97% of the population that are part of the rejects. Because they're not failed, system has failed them.
I see.
Okay? So what automation intelligence will do, and I'm hoping it would, mm-hmm. is to go to reach out to those 97% of the population and tell them that there is no failure. That is not an option. As long as you're living, you're alive, you're not a failure. Mm-hmm. And I think automation intelligence should do that.
Mm-hmm. I see. A lot of people, they may be so afraid of failure, but hopefully after listening to your words of advice, they don't take, they don't back away from failure, but they can step it up in their game. And my last question to you, sir, is what advice would you give to the students of this university to forge ahead and cement themselves in the scientific field?
That's a very good question. I never thought about it, but I can. What advice will I give to the students they should do in your university?
Yes.
That is your question. So my question back to you will be, how are you differentiating your students for your university? How do you define your university to be different than any other university?
Well, I feel that the students of my university, while all the other colleges may be reputed, but I feel that the professors and the vice chancellor have been putting in so much effort to bring in guides from different areas. So I think we would have that edge in terms of learning from experience. I think that is what I mean to defer.
Okay, so it's the vision of your institution
Absolutely.
That is trying to go beyond the brick and mortar traditional
Absolutely.
model. Okay, very good. And by the way, that is an excellent point. All universities that still want to remain in the traditional business model will fail. It is a global phenomenon. In the United States, the predictions are by the 2030, or no later than 2035, 40% of the universities will fail.
I see.
The reason they will fail, they're not willing to go beyond the barriers of the old traditional way.
All right.
Today's students are smarter than I was 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I was damn smart than my grandfather was. Mm-hmm. Don't ask me why that gene evolution makes you different. So today's students are very smart. They're looking for something beyond something that we can't offer a lot of times. So hopefully automation, your beyond the boundary education, automation technologies, interface, updates, regular updates. Students don't really want to read a book that was written 50 years ago because even the references are 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. They're looking for references that are today. Right. And for right reason, because what you think was successful a year ago is probably not successful today, right? I think I had a meeting before I came here with Dr. Ranjan. He is a visionary. He's into technology beyond boundaries.
Right.
And I think that is needed for any institution.
Absolutely.
So going back to your students, I think students should feel very lucky if their leadership has a vision beyond bricks and mortar. And I think that'll be the successful point for them. And they should feel that way. One thing I learned from him, that he allows people to share their thoughts. So that should be another thing. And I'll speak to him again. If a student has an idea, so in our literature, in our mythology says, if you can think something, that means it can happen. It just hasn't happened yet. Otherwise, you won't be able to think, right? So if you can understand that, then if a student is saying something, that thought process did not just come in without a reason. Just because you don't understand doesn't mean it can't happen.
Right.
And I see that Dr. Ranjan could actually fulfill a lot of that vision.
Absolutely. All right. So that is the end of our interview. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on this session. And we are so grateful to have your insightful advice.
Well, pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is all in for today's edition. Keep sending your feedback and suggestions to us at studentstime@dypiu.ac.in. So, we'll take your leave now. See you again next week. Till then, stay safe and think scientifically.